Hey guys, just an ASMR video. I've been pretty sick, so ASMR video. Remember, if you like these kind of videos, if you sub to the channel, if you like whatever, comment. It doesn't hurt you if you want to, and it supports the channel. Thanks. So this is something that's been getting talked about, and I'm gonna take it a little bit at face value, but I'm gonna talk about the lightning rod that it started off again. Oh man, I might sneeze. Sorry, I've been kind of sick. It was basically Tokido was like it was super easy to win in the past, CVS 2, or even the beginning of Street Fighter 4. I beat one. Shit. Oh, there goes the ASMR. There goes the ASMR part. He didn't sneeze in the quote. I beat one of the best players using only one button in Sam's show. Games were broken, huge gap between strong and weak characters. Not that many people worked really hard to win in tournaments back then. And I guess there's a thing that Value said to it, whatever, but I often talk about correlation does not equal causation, right? And I've talked about more of this stuff in depth in videos, but I'm looking at this at face value, but I'm really talking about, because I'm not going to go into everything that was said, because I didn't read it all, but this is the lightning rod that have people sprouting this fucking absolute ludicrous bullshit, right? And whenever you try to someone tries to act smart or say how something was or is or whatever, and this isn't saying Tokido is a bad player at all, right? But what he's saying, he sounds like a fucking retard. Okay? Correlation does not equal causation, and we can absolutely destroy this argument so fucking easily, right? I mean, the dude is comparing Sam's show, right? Okay, Sam's show. What a famous game Samurai Showdown is, I guess, in the legacy of fighting games, but in the legacy of competitive games. To destroy this argument very quickly, Super Turbo. It's over. You've lost your argument. Just stop. Correlation does not equal causation. Okay? Super Turbo is, from a certain perspective, perhaps the most competitive fighting game of all time. Think about it, right? I'm sorry, I've been sick all day. A couple days now. Sick people stuff. Super Turbo is perhaps, from a certain perspective, the most competitive fighting game of all time. 16 characters in the game, if we don't count the super versions of the characters, but we could count them, right? Every character in Super Turbo gets used, don't they? Can you name me any new school game where every single character gets used in tournaments, in the highest level of play? A game where every single character gets used. Guess what? In Super Turbo, every single character gets used. Sometimes even their super version. Sometimes they might use the super version over the Super Turbo version. Sometimes both versions might get used. But every fucking single character in Super Turbo gets used. A game from the past. You know what I mean? Guess what? What I just said, every character gets used, because you want to know what? And this is when I talk about, and I try to talk about why it's important to have character archetypes and all this kind of stuff. When characters have such strong, distinctive differences, there's more archetypical strengths, etc. You know what I mean? Like Jurassic Park, nature will find a way. Some characters are inherently going to be better versus other characters. You have character matchups. No matter what you want to say about Super Turbo, and there's a counter character this, there's a counter character this, doesn't fucking matter. Because every fucking character in the game gets played. So again, your argument is already over. Correlation does not equal causation in video games. These things are so fucking easy to beat, dude. People are just really that goddamn fucking stupid about video games, okay? What has changed in games, and I see some people try to argue, oh, there's frame data in Super Turbo too, blah, blah, people knew about frames back then, you know what I mean? It's like, of course there's frame data back then, but it's not relevant to how the game was played, because no one fucking talked like that. You don't talk about like, oh, my move is plus this, my move is plus this, blah, blah, blah. Games were not so fucking pre-planned back then, okay? Games were more, they kind of marinated on their own. They found their own way, like Jurassic Park. The frog turned into a female T-Rex and they boned each other. And goddamn, Dr. Grant has to run for his life because he's about to get eaten. Jurassic Park, right? Whatever. I forget the story. But frame data has always existed in games. But nowadays, I've talked about new school games. Games are so fucking pre-planned. So predetermined. The developers have already played the game for you and decided how the game has to be played, right? Games are not inherently more skillful today whatsoever. The only thing that is different, and I've made videos talking about this, is now there is a GED equivalent test to games that did not exist before. Now there is the GED equivalent test of you read the cliff notes before the match, just like if you're trying to, hey, I don't want to pass high school. I need to get my GED just to show that I'm smart enough to survive in society. That's what fighting games are now. Now there is a very sort of standard, easy to get to baseline of video games because they're so pre-planned and predetermined. The developers, right when you get the game, they tell you, this is the hardest combo in the game. Everyone's going to be able to do it within a couple of minutes. You know what I mean? This is the hardest combo in the game. This is your character's max damage, B and B, blah, blah. You don't need to learn character-specific combos. Don't even worry about this. This is what your character does. Read the cliff notes. This is what your move is minus here. This is your jab has to be this many frames. You know what I mean? This is what your character does. This is the cliff notes. You don't see people playing old school games. They don't look at their phone. You don't see when people watch Super Turbo matches. You don't see them like, oh, we gotta go look at Super. Hey, you don't see people talking about Frame Dead and Super Turbo or anything like that, dude, because it's not relevant to how the game was played. But nowadays, you do, because the developers have given a sort of very easy to get to GED level standard of play that if you can do this, you can call yourself smart enough or functional enough to survive in the society that is this fighting game, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Fighting games now have a GED test, and it's a very easy GED test to get to. So from a certain perspective, do you want to say like, oh yeah, sure, of course. In new school games, is the standard level of playing higher? Maybe from a certain perspective that, again, the GED test exists, and more people can get to that standard level of saying that they function in society now. But are the games necessarily better or more competitive? Not whatsoever. There's no fucking proof of this whatsoever. And it's so easy to beat because you can just be like Super Turbo. I mean, he's using an example here like Samurai Showdown. Okay, Samurai Showdown is an important game in the legacy of fighting games, but are we comparing Samurai Showdown to fucking Super Turbo? Are you a fucking idiot? I'm not saying you're bad at games. And again, I'm looking at this at face value, but I'm more so saying this as it was using the lightning rod for people to try to spread their narrative of why video games are better nowadays, and they sound like fucking idiots, right? But anyway, there's never been any proof when people say this. There's absolutely nothing. Correlation does not equal causation, okay? Totally different thing, right? Video games are not the same. These broken games, guess what? They're often more competitive than these newer games. These newer games, what's so fucking competitive about this new game that you've given a standard level of play that every Jimmy down the street can tell you they did the hardest combo in the game, that they passed the GED test? What does that mean? There's even a clear, narrative or movement to get rid of execution in games. People want games to be math problems so bad. It's absolutely ridiculous and fucking pathetic. And the fact that people are using this as a lightning rod show people have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Anyway. Remember, if you like these videos, support them. Sorry, but oh man, I've been fucked up, dude. I was in bed almost all day. Don't get sick, dude. Life of a sick person, man. But anyway, man,